Hey guys, and welcome back to Genshin Interact. In today's video, we thought we would just simply talk about the value of Xingqiu as a 4-star since he may show up on the 4.5 banners, along with the other 4-stars Yunjin and Goro. So of course, looking first at the banner, it's a very Geo-heavy banner, with Xingqiu being the only non-Geo unit on it. With Xingqiu being a very powerful unit, we want to discuss why you may want to pull on the banner for him, but honestly maybe shouldn't. One very good reason right off the bat that you may not want to wish specifically for Xingqiu, well, there's actually two reasons I have. Personally, you should never really wish for 4-stars because they are not guaranteed. So it's always risky to wish on a 4-star in that sense. But also, Xingqiu does appear in the shop, and actually, since the shop just reset this month, he's actually in the shop right now alongside of Ningguang. So that's one easy way to get multiple copies of Xingqiu, as he does rotate in the shop every several months. So with that being said, that's a very easy way to get him. And if you're a new player right now, you can easily get him right here, right now. And he is a very, very great character at C0. Now, to anyone who does have Xingqiu, if you have Xingqiu, he's just one of those characters that you should at least consider building because he has so much value even for a 4-star. So Vixen, what are some thoughts that you have, first thoughts that come to your mind about Xingqiu's value as a character, and maybe like what teams would you place him in or stuff like that?
Well, looking at Xingqiu, there's so many different teams that you can run him in, but as a character himself to really look at, a lot of value is given to him, especially pre-Yelan. A lot of people always say that Xingqiu is like the 4-star version of Yelan, or vice versa, Yelan is the 5-star version of Xingqiu, and that's very true. A lot of them, both characters are Hydro, and both of their bursts are going to be helping mainly other characters with their normal attacks doing Hydro damage off field. The thing with Xingqiu that I especially like is that he actually is very good for energy just in general. So he's a great character for just basically grabbing a bunch of particles, especially if you're running Sacrificial Sword. So a lot of that just in general helps him just be a lot more of a solid unit for the team to never really have to worry too much about energy. So that's a big help as well. Whereas I know sometimes depending on how you build Yelan, she can have some issues here and there. So just in general, he's a solid 4-star that a lot of people have used for a very long time, especially during the Hu Tao era, with, even still using him and Yelan to just be a really solid duo with Hu Tao, who can be, used with Zhongli as well. And considering he can also, in his skill, have his rain swords up, and he can actually heal while doing so. So not only can, he help a little bit with just Hydro application, he can heal a little bit as well, and then bring down just the resistance to interruption as well whenever the characters, has those rain swords on, as well as whenever they take damage, the rain swords will shatter instead, reducing the damage that basically that a character is going to take. And that's why he works really well with characters like Hu Tao. But, some other teams, I guess, you could run him in even still are, the idea of a Hyper Bloom. And, a lot of characters are focused on normal attacks and Hyper Blooms. You've got even people like to use Nahida on field for a Hyper Bloom team, or Al Haytham, someone like that, who's going to be the Dendro character, or even someone that's more focused on constant normals, that, may be an Electro character, but you can still get those constant Hydro procking so that you can actually create Bloom cores so that you can Hyper Bloom with it. So in general, he's good for Bloom teams. With Nilou, he's good with Hyper Bloom, Vaporize, like I already talked about. He just fits in so many different areas, and because, like you said, he's a 4-star that is, on this banner, which it's not a very great banner to be on right now, especially since these Geo characters are more focused on mono Geo teams, whereas someone like Navia is more focused on Crystallize, where he would be useful. So this banner is a little bit rough to actually pull on, but I think in general he has very, very high value for a character.
Yeah, agreed. Very well said. Just a lot of different teams, right? So, and there's even Burgeoned, very similar to Hyper Bloom. Because in teams like that, the most important thing is the application. So I know some people talk about going back to comparing him with someone like Yelan. I know you mentioned that already. And this is for me personally, so you can label this as just my opinion. But when it comes to teams that all that matters is the application and not necessarily the damage, I actually prefer Xingqiu over Yelan. And the reason I say that is two main reasons. The first reason is Xingqiu has a lot better energy conservation, and it's probably just due to the fact that you do use Sacrificial on him, so you are using 2 instances of the skill. You're building a lot of ER on him naturally because he's Emblem, and yeah, Yelan should be using Emblem too, and maybe you're using Favonius on her to get some particles. But I've just found that in most scenarios for me, and I don't know, maybe you too, Vixen, it just seems a lot easier to get Xingqiu's burst back than it does for Yelan. Whereas Yelan is a lot more damage, right? But in a team where it's like Burgeon or Hyper Bloom, what matters more to me than the damage of the Hydro application unit is Hydro application itself. And also, Xingqiu with the water swords, when you use your skill, has those water swords around him, and those can cause the nearby enemies to become wet when you're near them, which Yelan doesn't really have anything like that. So it's just a little added thing that's like in between the burst hits, there is that chance to still also get them wet with just being close to them, kind of like Barber's skill does as well. So that's just personally for me. And then that also just does free up my Yelan for like other sides of the Abyss if we're in that setting. So Xingqiu is an awesome character. I really think you should build if you have him. His constellations are amazing. And when you get all the way up to C6, very good. It does give him back some energy, which of course, like I was saying, very good to have. But like, yeah, if you're just running sacrificial, you shouldn't have too many problems with that to begin with. As long as you have like around probably, I'd say like 200 ER with the emblem, you're looking very good. So that's just some of my personal thoughts on Xingqiu, you know, and his value in a lot of different teams. He can even be used with someone like Fremine, because Fremine, we know he's a physical damage dealer, but he also does like to have a shatter somewhere in the team to increase his skill hit. So all you have to do in that sense is freeze an enemy and then hit them with the claymore, and that causes shatter. So just adding Xingqiu in the team will allow you to freeze. If you know, because Fremine's cryo, you get a freeze off. Also an electric character for the super conduct, you know, just stuff like that. So he shines in that team, or a team like that as well. And you can even turn that into some weird, you know, hybrid teams like some other Hyper Blooms. Just a great character, and I could go on and on about how great this character is. So at the end of the day, if you have Xingqiu, I think you should build him, and there's a lot of great guides out there that you can look up for him. As far as his value, that's all I have to say on his value as a 4-star. And again, looking at the banner, I wouldn't pull on the banner just to get him. He is in the shop. That's another huge reason not to pull on the banner just to get him. And if you want constellations, I think it's just better to wait. You know, like Vixen was saying a lot earlier, it's just not a great banner to go on, especially if you're not carrying or not focused on Geo. But if you're like an Ito main, this banner is like really great, because maybe you want constellations for Ito, maybe you don't have C6 Goro yet. But if you're not Geo, then this banner is not for you. I know it's not for me because I don't have Geo and all that stuff, and I'm not looking to get Geo anytime soon, so that's just me.
I think that, like, in general, when looking at Xingqiu, I really think he's a great character. Like you said, he has a lot of good teams that he can fit in, and just in general, he's a great character to have. I don't think, like you were saying, like both of us have been saying, don't pull on this banner for him. Never really pull for 4 stars on a banner, but just in general, this banners in general isn't that great. Unless you're already going on it, then obviously you're going to get, hopefully you'll get him, and he's a great character to have. The other thing I would just keep in mind is obviously, you know, try to run a sacrificial sword on him like we were talking about earlier. Try to run a 4-piece emblem, just because that 4-piece emblem will help him do more damage in his burst, which, like we said, kind of helps him a little bit more stay on track with doing some more damage off field. But he is more focused on doing the Hydro application, which is where that 2-piece of energy recharge really comes in to really help him out. And then obviously the weapon as well helps him a lot with energy recharge. Try to look for a lot of energy recharge on your stats, maybe some attack as well, just for some straight up damage, and maybe look for some crit at the end. But basically your whole point in this build is to just go full ER, like Rift was talking about, 180 to 200 ER. If he's the only Hydro on the team, you're probably going to want to stay around 200, maybe 220. If he is, you know, paired with another Hydro character, then you could probably sit around 180, maybe 160. It just depends on how that other Hydro character is applying. Like Yelan, for instance, if there's a lot of energy that she has, then you could probably get away with a little bit less. But besides that, that's kind of everything we have for looking at Xingqiu. He's a great character, and if you guys do have him, do please go ahead and try to build him. He is a great character. But besides that, that's all we've got for right now, so we'll see you guys in the next one.